I am very pro mass deportation. And it's because these illegal immigrants are coming here and they're wreaking havoc. We've seen what happened with Lake and Riley. We've seen what has happened in every major city, especially in New York, where I believe was it one out of every five hotels in New York City was housing illegal immigrants for a while, probably still are. It's getting out of control. Okay. So I am very pro these raids that are happening where they are going around. And if you are at high risk of being an illegal immigrant, they are detaining you and making sure that you got your paperwork and credentials. And it has come to this because the issue is out of control. Okay. For people who really there are people who to this day do not understand how out of control the illegal immigration issue has gotten here. And I always give this analogy. Think about every black person that's in America. Okay. Walk with me here. Stick with me here. Every black person that is in America, that population is roughly 40 million. You cut that in half, then you got about 20 million. That is how many illegal immigrants we have here. So for every black person, for every 2 black people you see in America, there is 1 illegal immigrant. And that's just of what we roughly know of. Okay, it's out of control. And I don't care what shade of brown you are, because I always say at the border, you see 50 shades of brown. That includes the Polish that are here illegally. That includes the Asians that are here illegally. That includes the Haitians that are here illegally. And it includes the Hispanics that are here illegally. Because for some reason, this always just becomes a Mexican issue. This is about far more than just Mexico. Okay. And if anybody is one of the biggest victims, or if any group of people are amongst the biggest victims of illegal immigration, it's the Mexican citizens of Mexico who are dealing with the cartel and the Central and South Americans who are wreaking havoc in their country on their way to come here and mess things up for us. Okay, the Canadians can go back. Everybody can go back. Okay, we don't discriminate unless you don't have a birth certificate or the credentials and the documents to be here. Now, all that being said, LA is on fire. LA is once again on fire because of this whole situation with ICE they're going through Los Angeles. They're doing raids in places like Fashion District and in Home Depot parking lots, which it's so funny that Home Depot is where they're finding so many of these legal immigrants. But hey, if that's where they are, you got to go where they are. Now, what's happening is because there's these demonstrations that are opposing Trump administration's mass deportation policies, which has led to the arrest, or that was aiming to arresting 3,000 migrants daily. And there are now demonstrations against it that have been blocking streets. They're setting cars on fire. Especially in places like Compton and downtown LA, they're looting gas stations. They're looting Adidas. They're throwing rocks. They're throwing bricks. There are so many clips that I'll show you guys throughout this video or throughout this episode of them just wreaking havoc all over Los Angeles. They're harming federal agents and defaming federal buildings. Like, there are so many videos of ICE agents being attacked, and it's really just out of control. So President Trump saw this and he did what needed to be done. He saw that the anti-ICE protests were getting out of control, and with it starting to spread nationally, especially to cities like New York, Chicago, and Austin, just amplifying this tension. He knew that it was time to do something. Okay, even DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, they actually put out this video making a message. Now, I ain't got my eyes on, Chad. California politicians must call off the rioting mob. Federal law enforcement are working to protect and safeguard American citizens from criminal illegal aliens. Why is California's governor siding with foreign criminals? Exactly. And don't judge me for having to squint, y'all. When I ain't got my glasses, y'all know I can't see anything. But the fact that the department, like, look at this. Havoc. A mess. Okay? Just so you guys can really get the visual of how out of control these riots are getting. And we're going to unpack this whole Mexican flag ordeal. Trust, we'll get there. But Trump has sent over the National Guard. President Trump actually labeled the protests and the rioters as insurrectionists. And he criticized Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and LA Mayor Karen Burn Down the City Bass as incompetent. The T of that, okay, It's reality. So 2,000 National Guard troops ended up being deployed over to Los Angeles to try to get these riots under control. And then President Trump ended up adding 2,000 more and 700 Marines to come over here, which really had to override Governor Newsom's authority because LA is being destroyed. And shame on anybody who tries to get in their way and thinks that what is happening in LA is acceptable. Okay, we have seen what happens when this all goes unchecked. We saw the summer of love with 2020, George Floyd and the BLM riots, and we are not going through that ghetto again. Okay, the billions and billions of dollars of damage that was done because of the George Floyd riots, we are not dealing with that again. And I thought it was hilarious when Trump called, when Trump called these people insurrectionists because they're literally attacking federal buildings. Everybody wants to bring up January 6th. What about it? What about January 6th? Yes, that was ghetto too. All of the above is ghetto. Okay, so people keep trying to bring up the past and bring that up. And I get it. I get the argument. But just as a reminder, Nancy Pelosi is the one who got in the way of deploying the National Guard during January 6th. So when Trump, who has always been for making sure the National Guard is where they need to be when these insurrections are happening, of course, it's another leftist, a leftist politician who wants to get in the way. Okay? So don't even come for me when it comes to the January 6th stuff. Now, you got these people who are going out and really trying to harm these ICE agents, which I think this should be considered attempted murder because you see them throwing bricks. Do we have a clip of that? Unbelievable. This is insane. And there was like a $50,000 warrant trying to find out who this was. And they ended up finally finding him. And of course, because I'm sitting here thinking this guy has hell of a name on him. He's like he plays baseball or is like a baseball coach or something like that. But he is throwing bricks at these federal agents. Like that could literally take somebody's life. And mind you, there are a lot of people who have talked about, and I haven't seen a clip of this necessarily, so I will preface with that, but I'm sure if you look deep enough, you can probably find it. There are a lot of people who I know in LA that have mentioned that Antifa spent the last week going around and placing a bunch of rocks and bricks at various locations where all this havoc was happening. So I can't say that that's 100% confirmed, but I have heard multiple people who are in LA, who aren't even in the political space, saying that they have been noticing or seeing footage of people dropping off these bricks everywhere so all this can happen. Because never forget that these protests, when they get violent and they're riots like this, it is always an organized effort. Okay? So it's just so out of control. And then Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, he actually threatened to arrest officials who are obstructing ICE. And in my opinion, as he should, because you have people like Governor Newsom who refuses to take any accountability for how out of control this has gotten. And this is actually what he had to say to President Trump.
And this is why I told the president, just get it over with. Arrest me. Move on. If you need some head to scalp, do it with me. But stop messing with these kids. Stop messing with 4-year-olds, kids in elementary school. We've got kids. We have hundreds of graduations down here. Kids are not going to their own graduations. Families, grandparents here legally, mixed status families in some cases, scared to death to go to a graduation. People are scared to walk down the streets. It's not just Home Depots getting their car washed. We have incidences. I didn't believe it because what was I thinking? I actually believed when they said this is not true. But then I saw videos. They're doing checkpoints, checking people's IDs. We've never seen this kind of deployment in so many actions. It's mass panic out here in the nation's largest county, in the nation's largest state. Good, hardworking people, decent people. These are not the criminals. These are not the thugs.
Bruh. Me when I lie. Me when I lie for no reason. Me when I decide to lie like SZA. Okay, there's so much to unpack in that. First of all, he's sitting here talking about there's mixed status families. When he says mixed status and he tries to skim over that like we didn't just clock that, what you just said is families that have some legal people and also illegal people here. People who are literally not supposed to be here. And then he says in the next breath that these people aren't, they're not criminals, they're not thugs. If you're here illegally, then that means you're a criminal. You have broken the law. You are not supposed to be here. Period. Case closed. I don't even know what further argument you would have on that. And I don't know why people try to act like America is the only nation that has immigration laws. Every single country on this planet bans illegal immigration. You are not allowed to just go to a country and stay there. So why do we have this precedent that that's supposed to happen here? And then Gavin Newsom wants to sit there and say people are scared to walk down the streets. Gavin Newsom, your own citizens are afraid to walk down the streets. Law-abiding citizens are afraid to walk down the streets because of the havoc that these illegal immigrants and their sympathizers are causing. Okay? Girls are afraid to go on a jog because of what happened with Lake and Riley. And you're sitting here more concerned about the illegal immigrants who are afraid to walk down the streets because they're breaking the law and they're going to be sent back home? They should be scared. They should be uncomfortable. And the fact that there are so many leftists that think that we should create this safe haven for people to come here and break our laws, we are not a country that is going to be founded on anarchy, okay? You will not bring your ghetto here. You fled the ghetto of your own nation, and then you're trying to bring it here, and that is just not something that I'm having.